যদি সবাই ফিরে যায়, ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায়, যদি গহন পথে যাওয়ার কালে কেউ ফিরে না যায়, তবে পথের কাটা তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে, তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে। যদি আলো না ধরে, ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা আলো না ধরে, যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে, তবে বজ্রানলে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে, আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে। একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো রে।
Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. Before we get to the debate between Ben Shapiro and Cenk, which I believe is one of the, which I think, at least according to me, it's one of the best debates that has ever happened, because of the entirety of it, the content, articulation, how fun it was to watch, the entertainment value, everything included. So before we get to that, I want to show you all something that happened in the Facebook Indian Libertarians discussion group. They are accusing me of being a right-wing trad. And the second accusation is that I am funded by BJP IT cell. You see, conclusions based on vibes, without seeing practically anything I've ever said, really. The accusations basis was that I have a photo with Sanjeev Sanyal on Twitter, and that I called Ajit Bhartiya libertarian. I specifically said almost libertarian, or something like that. So let me take you through that. How did it come to be? Okay, this is going to be fun. Anit Dash, why would you expect Hindutva belief in the libertarian guys? Their policies help our cause the most and doesn't harm the society or country in a socialist way. That's all. So anyway, let's see. So there are two handles at this point regarding India and libertarians on the Twitter. Okay, on Twitter. One is the Libertarian Party of India, whose people we are bringing on and we are interacting with. Another handle is called Indian Libertarians, which is run by a guy called Ajay Malla Reddy. He runs a restaurant in Hyderabad or Bangalore somewhere. So he runs that Facebook group, Indian Libertarians discussion group. And of course, his knowledge on libertarianism, economics, etc. is really great. I've been following it since 2018 or 19. So the sad part is that what they do is what they think they were born to do or anointed to do, and are happy not doing anything other than that or anything more than that, which is be that cool, edgy bro with a quippy two-line comeback here and there on a debate on social media, on typing, okay, not even verbally, with face to face. I've asked these guys to come on my podcast countless times. I've asked them to come and debate people who don't agree with them, etc. There hasn't been any replies even. Fuckers. So their narrative is mainly in the same way that Jayant Bhandari talks about things, okay? Like when we discussed Jayant Bhandari, right? I was saying that so many of his criticisms of Babukrishi, etc., even I agree with. Even we, all of us, agree with. So where's the difference then? Difference is just obviously in tone, and with that tone, we realize that you are happy being just the cool, edgy bro who criticizes things of India in a quippy, flippant way, and you are not looking for actual solutions and stuff because you have never come out of that Facebook group to do any fucking thing ever in the 13 years of running the Facebook group. So, and most of them are very, very educated, run their own businesses and stuff, very, very self-dependent. So, now that libertarianism is getting talked about in Hindutva circles, उनके 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 गाड़ में आग जली है, क्योंकि उनका जो कूल एजी एक्सक्लूसिव ग्रुप का जो कंजम्पशन पैटर्न था उसमें और लोग घुस रहे हैं. अब उनका कूल एजी एक्सक्लूसिव ग्रुप और एक्सक्लूसिव नहीं रहा. That's the core problem here. So, and I still understand why Jayant Bhandari says those things in that way, because he lives in Canada. These fuckers are living in India only, a lot of them, and they're going to keep libertarianism shackled in their cool, edgy Facebook discussion group with anonymous accounts, with DPs of Pepe and monkeys and Cap Monkey, etc. So they're pissed off that other people have found out their edgy topic. Now, let's see this thing. Let's check out how it started. Okay, let me cast the Twitter page, and I have been meaning to call out their bullshit for a long time, and I could not, because they would just accuse me of being a let's say, oh, you are calling me anti-national now. So I didn't want to get into that because I knew that would be the counter. But तो आज थोड़ा वो सेटिंग फॉक्स अमंग द हेन हाउस जैसा हो गया. बहुत बहुत गांठ जली है बहुत लोगों के. That's nice, because a lot of people who don't disagree with that Jayant Bhandari wing of libertarians, they will become followers or viewers of our channel and our ideas. So that's nice. Let me show you how it all began. I hope you all are watching. Ajay Mallareddy, etc. Dhruv Zakmin. I'm going to talk about you guys. Let's see. Yes, here. तो हर रोज सुबह से शाम एक ही आइडिया है, एक ही काम, एक ही नाम, के इंडियंस बहुत खराब है. ये दीज इंडियंस ऑल आर पजीट्स, ऑल आर देहातीज एटसेट्रा. इन लोगों को लिबर्टेरियनिज्म जैसा एक कूल आइडिया समझ में काहे नहीं आ रहा, और हम कितना कुछ कर रहे हैं समझाने के लिए. लाइक व्हाट? Like discussing and abusing Indians in a small Facebook group. Oh my God, can you believe I've done so much for libertarianism and popularizing that idea? Even then these dumb Indians don't follow our group and don't follow our understand our ideas. Holy shit. तो आज शुरू हुआ यहाँ से कि I saw that handle Indian libertarians again saying that हिंदुत्ववादीज who are pretending to be libertarians, they are fake, etc. वहां से शुरू हुआ. रुको ढूंढने दो, आज मुझे बहुत मजा आ रहा है. Yes, मिल रहा है. Can you all see? Can you all read the tweets here? Yeah. I'll zoom in harder. Okay. Yes. So Indian libertarians, this handle was talking about someone who said, "Okay, most American libertarians turn out to be closeted MAGA-tards." तो false equivalency का तो बहुत मतलब fascination है इन लोगों का. तो वहाँ वो कर लिया, बोला कि and you will notice the same thing in India as well. Been running the Indian Libertarian discussion group for around 13 years now and noticed the same trend. People who joined pre-2014 because we were bashing Congress later turned out to be just Modi bhakts and started doing mental gymnastics to justify his policies. Lot of Hindutva right-wingers also fake being libertarians, and you can always know who is the real deal if you observe carefully. और ये careful observation का skill कहाँ पे है? उस लौड़े उस छोटे से ग्रुप में, ठीक है? और वैसे बाहर वो जो क्रिटिसाइज कर रहा है उससे तो we agree कि ये doing mental gymnastics to justify Modi's policies, yes, that's what I call that feasibility bullshit. कि मोदी है प्राइम मिनिस्टर, चीफ मिनिस्टर है कोई और, यहाँ पे फिजिबिलिटी डिस्कस कर रहा है जिसको एक्चुअली वो पॉलिसी पसंद ही नहीं है. तो वी आर अगेंस्ट दैट एनीवे. So finally today I responded saying, what is that real deal? कि तुम जो real deal ढूंढने का जो अजूबा एक skill है तुम्हारे पास, वो real deal being be as hateful of Indians as possible, suck Jayant Bhandari's dick and take the rhetorical path to irrelevancy with wet dreams of getting anointed, quote unquote, not even appreciated in his own time. यही उनका एजी ब्रोज का एक ही सपना है जिंदगी में कि मरने के बाद कोई बोल दे भाई हमारे लिए कि भाई हम तो मतलब इतने कूल थे कि कोई समझ ही नहीं पाया हमको. तो like people say about नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस in कोलकाता के सुभाष के बोझा शक्त, libertarians want that tag के libertarian देर बोझा शक्त. Then he got butthurt He's saying this is a retarded thing to say because most of Jan's followers are more authoritarian than libertarian and have more in common with right wingers and libertarians. Policy discussion पे मैं बात ही नहीं कर रहा हूँ because people who talk like Jayant Bhandari say the exact things about India as Jayant Bhandari does. They say the exact things about Indians the way Jayant Bhandari does. That's what I'm pointing out. Some of them may secretly admit that yes, they suck Jayant Bhandari's dick, and some of them may not, and may say that yes, authoritarianism is bad, but everything Jayant Bhandari says about India and Indians is absolutely absolutely accurate. So I pointed out, called out that, and said that in your 13 years of running the group, you only found closeted Modi bhaks and no Bhandari counselors, because you're never calling out Jayant Bhandari counselors. You're only calling out Modi bhaks, who are, by the way, against hardcore socialism. They are just a little weird to do those mental gymnastics and say feasible nahi hai bhai, ab ka kare. Then we go live. Then he does other things. Then we have the discussion with Libertarian Party of India. Yes. Then that guy says, who was saying that libertarians are megatards. तो टार्ड्स तो बोल दो, टर्ड बोल दो, हो गया तुम्हारा डिबेट डेप्थ. तो वो बोलते हैं कि होल इंडियन लिबर्टेरियन डिस्कशन ग्रुप हेट्स भंडारी लोल. तो आई सेड, वेयर इज दैट हेट? In the deepest pits of their heart. 99% of ILDG's rhetoric and claims and observations are 100% Jayant Bhandariist. ये अलग discussion है. Okay, yeah. So then he says this is fake news. Anyone who has spent enough time on the group knows this. Of course, both left and right pick some quotes by random retards from other side, etc. So then I was just pissing him off for no reason. Just काटी कर रहा था. Cope for getting caught hating India and Indians and simping for Jayant Bhandari. मैं अब ट्रोल कर रहा था इन लोगों को. Then some other stuff happened. Yes. Now he says, dude, you are flat out lying. There are posts going back years where the comments are full of people calling out Jayant's bullshit. If you want to make up shit just to score points on Twitter with audience who don't know what the group is about, that's peak dishonesty. Yes. And there's a reason why he finds out old posts and stuff. But, and you see, it's some of his posts, some old posts, and some people who probably agree with us who are criticizing Jayant Bhandari. He uses them to say no one agrees with Jayant Bhandari in that group. But I will bet you, go to that group yourself. A lot of you all are on Facebook. Go join that group and see what that group discusses and in what way. So again, I quote tweet that and say, you want me to post screenshots of your members who say exactly things that Daddy Jayant Bhandari says, exactly in the same way without acknowledging that they jerk off to Jayant Bhandari. And then the hilarious actions begin. Now, for this, I'll go to the Facebook group directly. He says, he posts my post screenshots and says, this is the weird accusation ever that I suck Jayant Bhandari's dick. This is the screenshot. Now, first hilarious comment is here by Orko Bose, a fellow Bengali. Where is the comment? Oh, then he posts the context, how it got to this. Where is Orko Bose's comment? अरे भोसरी के delete कर दिया comment. Embarrass होके रुको ये तो Twitter से फिर से दिखाना पड़ेगा. Anyway, that Orko Bose guy said that this is probably some communist guy, look, waiting for his own revolution. इसलिए गाली दे रहा है तुम लोगों को. Because he thought College Street Kolkata नाम है तो होगा कॉमी. Then Ajay Malla Reddy points out that no, he's not commie. He is right-wing trad. I am trad, guys. कितने सारे लोग आज कितने खुश होते और मेरा सब्सक्राइबर कितना ज्यादा होता अगर मैं ट्रैड होता तो. So that post is now deleted. Thank God I took screenshots. Now, then Dhruv Zakmane, whom I really respect because of his policy views, but rhetoric pe inko bhi bahut gaad jali hai. So he says, who hurt him? From his profile, it seems he got triggered over anti-nationals, sarcastically, who are skeptical of Amritkal and superpower soon. Yes, we are very skeptical. So he says, I don't know who he is, etc. But look at Dhruv Zakmane's accusations, okay? He points out that I once met Sanjeev Sanyal, and his accusation is that Hindutva right-wingers LARPing as libertarians, and he got triggered by that. Then he posts another screenshot, Dhruv saying, where I said that Ajit Bharti is almost libertarian because he advocates for pro-market policies and often about free speech and stuff. Okay, Ajay Malla Reddy goes on saying, I don't know who this is, I don't know who this is. Okay, now look at this accusation. Malla Reddy says, looks like IT Salias are attempting to hijack discourse. चूतिया तेरा discourse लौड़े वो 30 आदमी के बीच में था फेसबुक ग्रुप में लौड़े. इसको हाईजैकिंग डिस्कोर्स बोलना होता है. तुम्हारा गांडू तुम्हारा डिस्कोर्स कहां पे है? डिस्कोर्स का डेफिनेशन क्या है? चाय का अड्डा? What the fuck is this discourse? Which nobody had heard of in those 13 years of running the face group. We are hijacking discourse. तो looks like IT Salias are attempting to hijack discourse. हमारा exclusive groups में हमारा cool toys काहे भोसरी के ये देहाती लोग ले गए. That's the complaint here. To hijack discourse against retarded economic policies of government by LARPing as Sarkari libertarians. Okay. So yeah, allegedly I'm funded by the IT cell. But anyway, we are hijacking a discourse that didn't fucking exist. And secondly, they don't know that we criticized heavily those same policies. The backlash against Nirmala Sitharaman's taxes, he calls her Thai. The backlash against Nirmala Sitharaman's taxes on social media and such has been traced to groups like ours somehow. Has been traced. They think Sanjeev Sanyal and people in the government were sitting down and thinking, ये हमको गाली कहाँ से पड़ रही है? Maybe it is this group called Facebook Libertarians, Indian Libertarians Discussion Group. Oh, यहाँ से आ रहा है. So now, let's find out a right-wing trad guy from Kolkata whose channel name sounds communist. उसको बहुत पैसे देते हैं to hijack discourse which exists among 50 people in that Facebook group. क्या genius master stroke. Fuck. Okay, so the backlash has been traced to our group. हमारे exclusive group के वजह से backlash हुआ है. Holy fuck. तो ये एक डिजीज है जो बहुत लोगों के साथ होता ही है कभी ना कभी. बट ये हमको सबको याद रखना चाहिए कि इंडिविजुअल पॉलिसी में कि अपने पाद का जो बू है वो अपने आप को पसंद ना आने लगे. इन लोगों के साथ वो हुआ है इस वक्त. तो these people can't comprehend जनता complaining about economic pain on their own. Okay, that's my point entirely, that yes, जनता was complaining it on their own. No one in the government thought that it's coming from that obscure Facebook group and therefore hired an YouTuber to hijack discourse that you all never created in the first place. What the fuck? Okay, then post a meme. Look at me. I am the captain now. So I met Sanjeev Sanyal. Fuck. Okay, now let's get to what I believe is one of the best debates on capitalism versus government intervention. And the best section of that debate, I believe, is on the healthcare sector. What's the name? Yeah. शुरू में थोड़ा सा ऑडियो का घपला है, ठीक है. देखो डिबेटिंग स्किल्स क्या होते हैं. हाँ, अब थोड़ा पानी पी लेते हैं ऐसा इंट्रो के बाद, और थोड़ा सा फेसबुक ग्रुप, थोड़ा लाइव स्ट्रीम में चैट्स देख लेते हैं कौन कौन था यहाँ पे. Cenk Uygur is Hassan Paikar's uncle. Yes, both are far left progressives. Yeah, Cenk is a little less crazy now. They serve to further. Who knows? Ram Ram Rishabh, Navimar Hare Ram. Yes. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu, 71 হাতিয়ার গর্জে উঠুক আরেকবার. কলেজ দাদা bro, please listen to Rahul Deshpande and Mahesh. Oh yes, একদিন करना होगा. Then Jay right wing America. BJP funding people. Wow, some nice. Still can't get over Jubilee's loss. हाँ भाई, ठीक है, ऐसे ही होगा. अरे और दुख की बात है कि पूजा राठौड़ भी तो हारी थी. उसका तो फेक एक मतलब गलत रेफर डिसीजन से जीत गई. और देखो, सीखो कलरीपयट्टू क्या क्या होता है. बट दे शुड रिड्यूस गन्स फॉर मणिपुर. वेट, नमस्कार अभय, माय कंट्री इज इंडिया. LPI seems like CPI light, kind of like Bud Light especially, seems like they're secular and doesn't care about Hindutva cause, and their policies seem to be inspired from Protestantism. Wait, no matter where it's inspired from, and I could easily argue that it's not inspired from there, it's inspired from here, etc. But their personal views are not in question. That is the entire argument. Their personal views are libertarianism. What is this CSKR? Commie to Hindutwadi to libertarian to a trad blend. Yes, I'm everything. Omniscient ideology, trans ideologically. Calling oneself libertarian doesn't make them one, just like commies call them democratic. Yes, Neolithians. No, not yet. If Hindutva incorporates libertarianism, they will become completely irrelevant. Yes. अरे ब्रो लेट इट गो डिसेंट्रलाइज योरसेल्फ आई एम डिसेंट्रलाइज मेरा कुछ अंश तो अब ट्रैड में है मेरा एक अंशा कमी पे है एक अंशा लिबर्टेरियनिज्म में है मेरा पूरा विस्तार हो गया है दिए देखबे खालिस्तान के एंड आई बेट यू दे वोंट support Khalistan in 2027 and if they do I'm done with that party. What the fuck? Oh yes, there's a group called Pajit Memes. They discuss that there is more elitism and less. Yes, this is more elitism, and that's what they are happy with. They are happy with this. Their cool exclusive group of elitism and not exactly libertarianism. It's just a libertarianism fun gathering. They have a condescending view of Indian culture because they have mostly read English-speaking Indian elites or Western authors. First of all, that's true. Secondly, even if they had read, I don't think they have. Even if they had read, they would still probably talk like this because they just have a nice time being in an exclusive group with cool, edgy consumption patterns. What do they want to do with a group of 10 people? Like do they want to feel better than the rest? Like, yes, the lesser the group, the better. So that's more a proof that I am so awesome that nobody gets me around me. So like the emo kids of 2004 and 2005. My parents don't get me. The society doesn't get me. So I'm just going to listen to some good post-hardcore metal and color my nails with black color. Ye unka moksha hai, yes. Okay, let's not read all comments now. Let's get to the debate here.
Editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire and host of the Ben Shapiro Show, Ben Shapiro. All right. And founder and host of the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur.
Boo ho raha hai. This is from 2017, okay? So you will get to see the evolution of discourse and the way of doing discourse in USA in these 8 years.
Of our speakers here. We'll have a response. We can have a re-response. We can go back and forth a few times. When we've gone far enough, then I will step in. I might ask a follow-up question, or I might switch the topic. So are we ready to go, guys? All right, well, let's start with one of the topics in the news today, and that's healthcare. And I'm going to start with Ben. Are you proud or disappointed in establishment GOP figures like John McCain, Lisa Murkowski?
John McCain, okay? Big time pro-USAID guys who hated Trump.
And Susan Collins for their vote on healthcare.
So I'm wildly disappointed with the entire party. The fact is that we were promised a full repeal of Obamacare. They did not even attempt to pursue a full repeal of Obamacare. And the fact of the matter is that there's a significant gap inside the Republican Party about whether this should even happen or not. There are people who believe that the Obamacare regulations are an affirmative good. There was an attempt to basically leave all the Obamacare regulations in place and just remove the funding mechanism, which would have led to the exacerbation of the death spiral. The truth about healthcare is this. There are three qualities of healthcare that you can have. You can have affordability, you can have universality, or you can have quality. And you can have two of those three things, but not all three.
This is such an important point to remember, which is why some people like Anand even I think argued that India's healthcare system might be the best in the world considering everything else. Because keep this in mind. This is one of the best. Oh, polymerase, are bhai tum kahan pe the? We just finished discussing that only. Thoda shuru se dekh lo, I gave the entire context. Okay, so you can have two of these three things, not the entire thing, not everything. This is a brilliant point about healthcare. Okay, Think of it in the Indian context as well.
The truth about healthcare is this. There are three qualities of healthcare that you can have. You can have affordability, you can have universality, or you can have quality. And you can have two of them.
एक तो है कि गरीब लोग हेल्थ केयर एक्सेस कर पाए कि नहीं, दूसरा है सबको ही एक्सेस कर पाएगा कि नहीं, तीसरा है कि बढ़िया क्वालिटी हेल्थ केयर होगा कि नहीं. एंड आई थिंक हर देश को तीन में से दो ही चूज कर लेना होता है. तो अब यूएसए का जैसे है कि which Ben Shapiro actually admits later in the debate, which is why this debate is so fascinating. He admits that USA is worst of all worlds at the moment when they were discussing healthcare, at least. Okay, it's neither affordable, it's neither nor universal, but it still has quality. It has one of those three things, which is why celebrities and big leaders from all over the world still go to USA. They don't go to Indian government hospitals for healthcare, including CPIM leaders and of course our stars, Congress party people, etc. Anand Sridhar is saying, I have a big problem with insurance-based healthcare. I'm really upset Modi is doing that here too. Are you trying to hijack the libertarian discourse, Anand? How dare you? So, India has, I guess, universality, and it has of course, it has affordability. It doesn't have quality. So you see, Ben Shapiro is right so far.
Those three things, but not all three.
Rohan Dante, good question. Anand, can you point out to any country which has all three? Might end up being some European country because उनका तो प्रॉब्लम्स उतना होता नहीं है और बहुत दिन से मजे कर लिए हैं कॉलोनाइजेशन के पैसों से, उसके बाद फ्री मार्केट्स भी किया है. तो मे बी some European countries can be argued to have all three. Singapore is the best system, but do they have all three?
Right, you can have universality, affordability, or quality. Two of those three things you can have. And one of the things that's happened with Obamacare is that you've gotten closer to universality, but you haven't gotten any closer to either affordability or.
Right, Rishabh. That is the problem we are facing. कि तो अब जिसके पास उतना पैसा है, वो जिसको क्वालिटी अफोर्ड करना ही है, क्वालिटी ही चाहिए, तो वो यहाँ पे नहीं करवाएगा. It has all three. Sorry, my bias is showing. Estonia. No. Which? Oh, Anand is saying. Singapore has all three. Interesting. I don't know about Singapore's healthcare system. And can anybody else corroborate what Anand is arguing here? Does anybody else agree with Anand that it has universality, affordability, as well as quality? If that is so, then we'll have to look up Singapore's quality. That would be fun. Taiwan, Estonia. Okay. Let me know if anyone agrees with Taiwan, Estonia, and Singapore having all three.
Or quality. And the Republican Party seems to be falling into the trap of basically just copying what the Democrats do, except being worse at it. What they actually.
Okay. Our Rantak Pakko came and gave the worst example, NHS of England. He's saying that is the best. Oh my God. Oh, someone called me a bad guitarist. I know who's calling me a bad guitarist. He's a phenomenal bassist. And I call him a Jayant Bhandari cum drinker all day. So he's pissed off with me. He's an old acquaintance. So he's a phenomenal bassist. And he used to play in phenomenal technical death metal bands.
What they need to do is relieve the regulatory burden that is driving up the cost of healthcare. And they need to stop acting as though insurance companies' jobs is actually just to reimburse people for their bad health. If you join up with an insurance company and your health sucks to begin with, you're going to pay more because it's an insurance company, not a charity. That doesn't mean that we can't have.
Yeah, this argument on its own is not that great, but after the counters, this argument gets more well fleshed out as Ben Shapiro goes on with his arguments. It gets better and better because some great counters come from Cenk. I agree it's not probably replicable in most countries, but what would be your reasons for saying it's not replicable in most countries? I would argue it's because of the size, the distance between the leader and the last person in the country. They are a small state, etc. Plus, it's kind of dictatorship, right? And it's now when I say Singapore is dictatorial, most people disagree. But anyway, so even if we have some Singapores, it might be affordable in some cities if we have some great city states, etc.
Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have some form of backup for people who have pre-existing conditions. I would hope that the social fabric would help fill that in. This is why I'm a big believer in charity and churches and synagogues filling that gap. But what we can't do is suggest, as the Bernie Sanders left does, that healthcare is an inalienable right, and therefore you can put a gun to my wife's head, she's a doctor, and you can force her to provide care at any cost you want to pay. You can't do that and hope to increase the supply of healthcare. Health insurance is not healthcare. They're not the same thing. And anybody who tells you differently is lying or trying to sell you something.
Excellent. Cenk, your take on the healthcare vote.
Great. Before I do that, first of all, welcome to the Thunderdome.
All right. Let's hear him speak.
Yes.
All
Guys,
right.
wait till he does something. I mean,
In all seriousness, the reason that I kid around about that is that I really want to make sure that Ben's opinions are heard and my opinions are heard, and that there's an exchange of ideas.
2017 में ये सब बोलना कितना cool था.
And believe it or not, there are some things that we do agree on, and what we won't be discussing those tonight. So on the issue of healthcare, let's get going. So the Democratic Party is incredibly proud that they defeated a bill that had 17% approval rating. It's a low bar, and I'm glad they held. The Republicans have a comical position, which is that why didn't the Democrats help us defeat Obamacare? Well, that's kind of because that was their idea. And why in God's green earth would they help you defeat?
It was not entirely Obama's idea. It was a right-wing Republican idea called brought out by a guy called Bob Dole. It was an old Bob Dole plan. तब देश और भी right-wing था, इसलिए बाद में ओबामा ही Republicans का plan use किया. It was Bob Dole and Heritage Foundation's idea. We are watching a 2017 video because the arguments are timeless. It's because it's between how much market can do and how much government intervention can or cannot do.
Defeat their own plan. Now, is Obamacare enough? Not nearly. And there are a number of issues that we had as progressives with it, including lack of price controls. You left it in the hands of private insurance, and of course, them being corporations, which Ben kind of alluded to there, they're going to want to make money. And so that is very, very normal. And so I don't think that was the right way to approach it, and it was originally a Heritage Foundation plan to begin with. So I believe that the right approach, and the one that Democrats should pursue next, although they probably won't, is Medicare for all. So real quick, let me explain why. Medicare polls us 77%. And actually accomplishes the three things that Ben talked about. It's universal coverage, it is affordable, and actually gives you good insurance. That's why it polls at 77%. And Medicare for all now polling at 60%. Federally funded health insurance for everybody polling at 61%. So I tell to my Democratic friends, you might want to try something that's popular for a change. So, and finally, like on the idea that, hey, listen, everybody can't get health care. Well, this is not like furniture, which sometimes you allude to, Ben. You could have good furniture, bad furniture. I've had it all, right? That's optional. If you don't have good health care, you die. And so I view it as not something that capitalism should deal with. And I believe in capitalism, and I think they make great sneakers. But something that is about equality of opportunity. And you cannot have equality of opportunity if you're dead. So Medicare for all.
okay.
Go ahead.
So a couple of notes in response to the Medicare for all shtick. So this is Bernie Sanders shtick, obviously. The problem with Medicare for all is that when people say that it's affordable, this isn't affordable to the person who has the Medicare. It is not affordable to the country. In fact, it is so unaffordable to the country that the state of California was a nut job leftist state, just refused to even pass Medicare for all because it would have immediately doubled the debt.
To be fair to Cenk, Uygur, California did not really avoid doing that because it was unaffordable, because they are now going on doing many unaffordable things. They did that because of just simple corruption. I mean, if they looked at the numbers, they would not be able to do it anyway, but they didn't do it just because of corruption and not the economics of it.
As far as the idea
Okay,
that
gravity has taken the argument a step further. Do we even deserve healthcare? This is like, this reminds me of Batista's conversation with the other Marvel superheroes. Okay, what was that? The I am Spider-Man. What is Spider-Man? Why is Spider-Man? ऐसा कुछ dialogue था ना? वैसा है ये.
Medicare, that medical care is a right, but it's not actually a good or a service. This is a way to make things less plentiful. If you declare
This is such a brilliant point. Listen to this point once again.
as far as the idea that Medicare, that medical care is a right, but it's not actually a good or a service. This is a way to make things less plentiful. If you declare things rights, but you don't actually incentivize the creation of those things, you don't get more of them. So
Yes.
the South African Constitution has right in there that healthcare is a right, that housing is a right. The fact is that you don't have good housing or healthcare in South Africa because just
And we have right to education. So, bhai, just declaring something a right doesn't make it fall from the sky. You have to create situations where people get into that business of making that product. So healthcare cannot be a right. Healthcare has to be a service.
declaring things rights does not make them appear. What makes more things appear is a market-based system that creates more doctors, that creates more medical care, that creates more incentive for people to join up. So my wife is a doctor. That means she has to go through.
What do you all think of, which is interestingly a very nuanced take from Ankit Shah on Ayurveda? Ke, like small stuff, fever and all, uske liye Ayurveda is better than allopathy, etc. And I have never done Ayurveda. I don't know anybody who has ever taken Ayurveda, but I keep hearing from a lot of people that Ayurveda work for them. But Ankit Shah is saying that Ayurveda for smaller, lighter stuff is okay, not for surgical stuff, etc. So what do you all think of that argument? And because especially if Ayurveda disrupts the market, then it's going to become a lot more affordable.
1,000 years of medical training, and we have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to make her a doctor. The idea that you're going to have the government come in and then dictate the sort of care that she should provide to each particular patient, and then dictate how much she should be paid for that care, is going to lead to a decrease in the number of people who are going into the medical industry, which decreases the level of care overall. This is why I say that it is better to treat things as goods than as rights, because declaring something a right just means that you have the right to steal it from me.
Yes.
But declaring something a good means that you get a market process that leads to lower prices and better care over time. And the big problem we've had before Obamacare is that it was already treated quasi as a right. You had it heavily regulated on the state level. It is continually heavily regulated. The idea there's a completely unregulated market is absolute nonsense. The reason you have employer-based health insurance in the first place was as a response to wage and price controls placed in the aftermath of World War II. And employers began giving health insurance as an actual good, right? They gave it as an actual incentive to their employees. If you had an actual individual-based health insurance market, you bought it just like you bought your car insurance, you would see more and better health care for everyone.
Fascinating argument, but Rishabh, I put your comment on the screen because there's actually a good counter argument from Cenk on exactly what you were saying. कि भाई healthcare नहीं रहा तो life ही तो नहीं रहेगा. So how can you say healthcare is not a right because life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness? So even I'm agreeing with. So what do you think of that argument? Okay, life तो नहीं होगा. For life, you need to declare healthcare a right. But of course, the point is that in the end, you can't just declare a right and it falls out of the sky. But I think we'll have to say that yes, right to life, liberty, and property has nothing to do with the healthcare argument. Therefore, that's the problem.
Yep. All right. So, Ben, I don't want to steal health insurance from you. I want you to be healthy. That's why I want Medicare for all.
You just want to take my money and my wife's services.
So, Republicans frame taxes as stealing. That's preposterous. So if we don't have taxes,
that's of course a philosophical argument. But उस वजह से अगर life to property वगैरह pursuit of happiness भी नहीं रखे तब तो problem होगा.
We don't have taxes. Well, we can't do all the things that we want to do as a community. Now, there are some things that we just talked about that we don't want to do as a community, we want to do as individuals. In fact, the things that we want to do as individuals are much greater. That's why we're a mixed economy, but largely capitalist. And I agree with that. And I run a small business myself. getting larger every day. So, but there are some things that the government should do. They should do the military, cops, roads, bridges, and yes, education and healthcare. That's because, you know, conservatives seem a little confused about how healthcare works. Paul Ryan had a whole press conference about this.
Yeah, Paul Ryan really gave a bad argument. He was so bad at debating. Have you all seen Paul Ryan's debate with Joe Biden? Holy shit, in 2012. Oh my God. If you you have never seen a harder debate, almost dumping than Joe Biden did to Paul Ryan. And that Joe Biden, ab uska, they killed my boy. क्या कर दिया जो बाइडन का शिट और टाउट भी किया दिखाया सबको देखो आज जो बाइडन का क्या हाल है भोसड़ी के that was an insane debate as far as the art of rhetoric and drubbing people goes that was phenomenal. Wait, we have some interesting comments here. Goddamn, अरे YouTube काहे delete कर रहा है lol.
And a little bit alluded to it there. They're like, oh my God, it turns out the healthy subsidize the sick. Yeah, that's insurance.
That's the definition of insurance.
That's how it works.
But where Cenk is being a little dishonest is that yes, it's insurance, but it again does not mean it's the same price of insurance for each and everyone, regardless of all other factors. That's what Ben Shapiro is pointing out. Anand is going on to the metaphysical realm now. If I was just randomly walking as a stateless person, while reading this comment, I can hear a Basuri background score in my mind. How do I have any rights? How did it even manifest? It only manifests when people come together and decide these are rights we will give. Beautiful.
It's like the people with that are not getting into accidents are subsidizing the accidents. Yes, that's car insurance. That's how insurance works. And yes, taxes work in that we all decide we're going to do X, but we're not going to do Y. And I think it is fair for society to say that yes, we are going to do healthcare for everybody. Everybody. We're not going to leave 20 million people uninsured. We're not going to leave 30 million people uninsured. That's not what we do in a civilized society. And from time to time, they, you know, and the attack against Medicare, they say, oh, it's an entitlement. Yeah, we paid for it through payroll taxes our whole lives. You're goddamn right we're entitled to it because we paid for it. We paid for it. And so
that's kind of a good argument, but then just because you paid for it when you were working, now how much is going to come off that payment? That's the problem.
And you take out the middlemen of the insurance companies that put their profits in there, that put their marketing in there, that put their lobbyist money in there. That means more savings for Americans. And so finally, you know, the idea that it can't be done is
right. Sumanawasi. That's why I was saying कि अगर public हॉस्पिटल्स है अगर पब्लिक फंडेड हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस है तब तो गुटखा वुटखा पे ज्यादा टैक्स लगाओ बैन करो उससे होगा कि नहीं पता नहीं ब्लैक मार्केट पे शायद कोई और भी चुतिया कोई गुटखा खरीदेगा मगर कुछ रिपरकशंस तो होना ही है बिकॉज दे आर गोइंग टू बी अ बर्डन ऑन द हेल्थ केयर फैसिलिटीज एनीवे अदरवाइज प्राइवेटाइज एवरीथिंग
preposterous since every other Western developed country does some version of single payer. It obviously can be done. And it is done at lower rates and better coverage.
So let me...
The examples are where a lot of people suffer anyway and nobody goes for healthcare. That's the problem with the quality argument again. Anand is still in his metaphysical realm. This fake concept of a civilized society. Uska aaj kya ek enlightenment ho gaya aaj.
Add something to this question and you can respond to it if you want to, but Cenk referenced Paul Ryan. When the Republicans took control of Congress, Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, famously said, we need to switch from being an opposition party to being a proposition party. So what's your evaluation, Ben, of their efforts in that direction?
What a great debate. और साउंड इंजीनियर जो है उसने कुछ स्क्रू अप किया जिसकी वजह से पूरा का पूरा ऑडियो लेफ्ट से आता है इनका मोनो इनपुट हो गया या फिर मोनो आउटपुट हो गया शायद उसके लिए लेफ्ट में चला गया
and to unite the party and move legislation forward.
I mean, we all have eyes. They suck at it. I mean, and Paul Ryan is not exactly my go-to guy when it comes to political acumen and genius.
And that's how Republicans used to be. They were soy boys. Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan. उसी लिए तो ट्रम्प के पीछे सब खड़े हो गए.
I more want to respond to some of the contentions that Cenk was making about Medicare for all and single-payer healthcare. A couple of things. One, when you say we pay for it,
ये सब अब तुम हमारे पूरे दुनिया में सिर्फ हिंदुइज्म ही था, सब कुछ इंडिजिनस ही अच्छा है, वो इडेनिस्ट वो लोगों को अब ये सब मत बताओ.
that's not technically true. The idea that everybody who's paying into Medicaid paid for it and now they get out what they paid in is obviously not true. It is a redistributive program, and to pretend otherwise is just silly. The people who are paying the payroll taxes are not the people who are taking out through Medicaid, obviously.
Can I just address that super quick? So if we're talking about Medicare, right? Not Medicaid.
Right.
So in Medicare, so you're both correct and incorrect. So it's not like I put in $20 and I get $20 back. That part is true.
Right.
But we all pay into Medicare together, and then we all get it when we
So
are
can I
sick.
ask you,
That
so can I
which
ask
is
you a question?
insurance.
I have two questions, really.
Yeah.
Serious
Because
questions.
up until this point, Cenk made a good argument. Okay, that's how insurances work. कि मैंने 20,000 रुपए का कार इंश्योरेंस दिया, तो इसके लिए मैं तोड़ दूंगा गाड़ी 20,000 रुपए वापस लेने के लिए. अलग लोग मुझे फंड करेंगे, जिन लोगों ने फंड किया था इंश्योरेंस पे और उनका एक्सीडेंट नहीं हुआ.
Questions. One, what is your ideal tax rate? Because it's going to cost a lot of money for a lot of this.
ये है डिबेट स्किल्स. अब मैंने शपीरो से थोड़ा बिग गन्स निकाला और आर्गुमेंट घुमा ही दिया.
Serious questions. One, what is your ideal tax rate? Because it's going to cost a lot of money for a lot of this stuff. And two, what is your ideal level of medical care? Because the fact is that we can spend millions of dollars on people at end of life care. We can spend millions of dollars on surgeries and preventative care. I mean, healthcare is an expensive business, even under a single payer system, which is why generally you end up with rationing. So, what is your ideal level?
Rationing का मतलब है, for those of you who don't know don't follow American politics, basic services, basic even medical products are so costly, and since everyone is obese, everyone is on taking their insulins and all day, so they ration it. They don't even use it. They use it a little less. कि अच्छा जब एकदम push comes to shove होगा तब ही सिर्फ use करेंगे, ऐसा होता है, which is even more unhealthy.
Level of healthcare that is provided to everyone, and what sort of tax rate are you proposing to subsidize that?
Yeah. So those are very, very fair questions. So let's talk about taxes for a second. So conservatives agree or say all the time that the golden era of America was the 1950s and 1960s. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. Our economy was booming at the time, and we became the #1 economy in the world at that time. The tax rate for the highest bracket fluctuated between 70 and 91%. So that is when we were at our best. Now, I want to be clear. I'm also a businessman, and boy, that seems high. It does, okay? And one of the reasons my family were
अब
Republicans.
बढ़िया काउंटर आने वाला है कि अच्छा 97% टैक्स रेट से ग्रोथ होता था ना, तो 100% कर देते हैं. And then Shapiro points out कि what other factors in geopolitics facilitated the doing of 97% taxes and having growth at the same time.
When I was growing up was because before Reagan came in, the highest marginal tax rate was 70%. So now we are nowhere near that. We have reduced taxes to bare bones, and we have shifted the taxes onto the middle class and away from the rich and corporations. So there is a much better balance to be had. And if you said to me, well, you're going to have $800 in taxes that are new, I say, wow, that hurts. But you're going to save $1,000 in premiums, deal. That is a deal I will take every time because I can do math.
Okay.
So that is the beginning of your answer to taxes. And then you said how much care. Well, so that is something that all the countries that do single payer or a version of single payer struggle with. And they have learned a lot of lessons. And if we stop saying America's #1, we might actually just, first of all, on this issue, we're number 37.
So,
And if we looked at what Japan is doing so well, keeping costs down to half of ours and less, we might actually learn something from Japan, Switzerland, and other countries. And by the way, when we say Medicare for all, Medicare Advantage exists. So you can actually add private insurance on top of that. And I find that perfectly great. I have no problems with that at all. So that is the government making sure you don't die and actually lowering rates for you. And then if you want more insurance, no problem.
so all this
बट उसके पास प्राइवेट इंश्योरेंस खरीदने का पैसा नहीं रहेगा किसी के पास. A great question from Shayok here. He's saying left has academic jargons to throw like poverty of philosophy, economic and philosophical manuscript of Marx, thesis of Feuerbach, etc. and so on and on. Can you suggest some books to read to counter? Now, if you want to counter them on just economic ideas, so Thomas Sowell, and then the other Friedmans and stuff. But if you want to address these particular specific concerns from a philosophy standpoint, then even read some philosophy. Even stuff like Jordan Peterson will help. This is my follow-up question to counter the age-old bullshit. Real communism is yet to be tried. Fathers.
Sounds great, except for the fact that Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security eat up 66% of the federal budget every single year. The idea that all of these socialized medicine countries have it so much better than we do, particularly in terms of cancer care, is a joke. We are still #1 in terms of 5-year cancer survival rate here in the United States. And when you talk about top marginal tax rates in the 1950s, there are a couple of things that are worth noting. One, that was top individual marginal tax rates, not necessarily the business tax rate. We now have some of the highest corporate tax rates altogether in the industrialized world. And if you would prefer for us to destroy half of the world before we become the only country that didn't have its industrial capacity destroyed, which is what happened in the 1940s, leading to us being the only productive country on planet Earth, essentially, for the next 2 decades, I'm not with you there.
उस एरा का आर्गुमेंट देके चेंग उइगर ने बोला कि देखो तब तो 97% टैक्सेस थे, कितना बढ़िया ग्रोथ हुआ.
I'm not really in favor of having a giant world war that destroys all industrial capacity across the West, so we're the only people who actually have the capacity to produce anything and just markets that we can provide to.
Right. So first of all, it is fair to say that, of course, the 1950s and 60s were different. We just come out of the war. So, but you have to consider all the different factors. So one was that factor, and the other factor that was the one I mentioned. So when Republicans or conservatives say, well, high taxes by definition will lead to slower growth, well, we know because of our experience in the 1950s and 60s that isn't true. Now, you can say there are other factors, but you can't say that the highest marginal tax rate being 70 or even 90% slows down growth, because it didn't. And it wasn't in Japan and Switzerland. It was right here. And
Slevin, this is an interesting argument that I heard in the live stream as well. I guess you only made it. That maybe 40 years later, when we are developed and a high trust society, maybe then. I don't think we will ever be a high trust society because of the diversity. And it is because we are not a high trust society, therefore libertarianism. यहाँ पे statism और centralization और भी कम काम करता है. And I have a counter to Vikhyat. Vikhyat का comment कहाँ गया? हाँ. He's saying, no offense, CSK, please continue. I won't vote for a vapor bro. Bhai, you are voting for people who go to prostitutes and then take bribes and beat up so many people in their student politician days. तुम कहाँ पर्सनल आइडियलिज्म की बात कर रहे हो? किस देश में बैठ के, किन पार्टी को वोट देके, किन लोगों को वोट देके?
And so, and by the way, as a guy who grew up Republican, I was surprised by that too. I was surprised that Finland's system of non-competition in schools worked, but it does. So we have to be open to facts and understand. So, and on the issue of where we're good and not good in healthcare, sure, there are different areas where we excel. But Ben, honestly, you're cherry picking there at one particular area that we're good. Overall, we're number 37. That is not a good result.
Well, you have
so
to
if we're
break
not
down
dying
that
from cancer, we're dying from other things. It's empirical. We are not as healthy. And finally, this idea that corporations are paying the highest tax rate is both, again, true and untrue. The part that it's true is, hey, there's a rate of 35%. The part that's not true is they don't actually pay that. There is giant loopholes. And they've got $2 trillion.
Loopholes meaning, Ben Shapiro भी ये counter देगा कि loopholes meaning कि कहाँ पे क्या exactly tax deductibles है वो ढूंढ निकालना. And no one's doing really anything illegal. So which actually Ben Shapiro has a even better point कि भाई तो loopholes मत रखो. Overall low taxes रखो कि कोई ढूंढ पाएगा loophole, कोई ढूंढ नहीं पाएगा based on his wealth and his lawyer etc. वो सब चुतियापा में नहीं घुसते हैं.
Sitting offshore and they won't bring it in. And the reality
ये दिल्ली privilege भोसड़ी के बोल रहा है कि दिल्ली is 10 times worse than Bengal. आओ कभी हवेली पे भाई हमारा बंगाली हवेली में.
is that if you look at the taxes from the 1950s, corporations used to pay about a third of our taxes, about 33% of the taxes overall. So they did their fair share, and that is fair. I don't want them paying all of it, but I want them paying a reasonable amount. Now, the share that corporations pay of taxes is down to 10%. You see what they did there? They did wealth redistribution. They took your wealth and redistributed it to them.
Okay. Jen, I'll let you respond to that.
Yeah, one more quick
ahead.
point, and then
Sure.
I'll be done with this because we can do healthcare for 8 hours here. But two things. One, I'd like to know which tax deduction, when people say tax loopholes, a tax loophole is just a tax deduction that's available to everyone, and some people take advantage of it and some people don't. I can't take advantage of certain corporate tax deductions because my business isn't in those businesses, for example.
Fair share.
I'm sort of with you in the sense that I'm not in favor of tax deductions. I'm in favor of a lower tax rate and get rid of a lot of the tax deductions because I think that it's ridiculous that we have people gaming the system. That said, I'd like to know which tax deductions you'd like to do away with. And I'd like to know also when you say that corporations pay 10% of the taxes, right, and individuals pay the other 90%. Okay, so that means the taxes are still getting paid to a higher rate than we ever have in our history in terms of the tax revenue to the government. The amount of tax revenue to the government right now is trillions of dollars every year. And final point here, you elided this question by saying we can learn stuff from Japan. The standard of care is the entire question when it comes to single-payer healthcare. That is the entire thing. If people felt
Should that be the entire thing? The standard of healthcare? Shouldn't someone have some access to some bad healthcare just because it's affordable? It's better to not die than to get only the best healthcare in the world. Maybe.
felt like they were going to get the same access to care in a single-payer healthcare system as they did in a system where they can pay their own way, then we would have no controversy here. But the fact is that rationing is mandated as soon as you start having the government run the healthcare system and decide what level of care people get. So I don't want anyone deciding what level of care that I can get. I don't want anyone else to, they don't care about me. They don't know my child's name. They don't know my name. All they know is how much I cost. I mean, Ezekiel Emanuel's at least honest about this. Ezekiel Emanuel comes out and says, listen, I want to die at 70, right? I want to die at 80. That's fine with me. I'd rather die at that. Well, that's good for him. But if I don't want to die at 80, or I don't want my father to die at 80, it's none of his damn business.
So when you say tax revenue is at its highest point, now you know that that's misleading because everything economically is at its highest point, meaning that we have a lot more people in the country than we did in the 1950s and 60s, so hence we are collecting more overall taxes. But the reality is,
And a much bigger
as
economy.
a percentage, it is clearly down. The top bracket now is around 39%. It used to be at 91%. That's inarguable, right?
But our economy is significantly larger than it was then, and part of that is because of reductions in taxes over previous decades.
Well,
This is something that Bernie doesn't get. Bernie doesn't give credit to people for these things. The same way that a lot of right-wingers never give any credit to any liberal. I guess everyone's excuse is that no, he wokeism aa jayega. Sort of a capitalism juju. Bernie Sanders says, see, we are the richest, most prosperous country in the world, so why can't we do X, Y, Z, fair X, Y, X, fair Y, fair Z, etc. But that's the point. It became the richest, most prosperous country in the world because it never followed your policies.
We tried supply side economics. Hey, Kansas, how's that working out for you? So there's this myth that
It's working out for you. Your business is doing great.
Okay, yeah. Well, we just had 8 years of Obama.
सबरीमाला पे डिबेट क्या है भोसरी का आज तक मुझे समझ में नहीं आया. Would you believe this if I said कि even before I turned Hindutwadi, I wrote a blog about how stupid the commie argument is because and I deleted that blog. I should have kept some screenshot or some stuff. I wrote it on WordPress and stuff. Okay, how does a non-believer have any say in it? Especially because I was a hardcore atheist back then. I was arguing that if you are really an atheist who doesn't believe in these things, or if you believe in those lofty ideals, feminism, etc., and women's right to entry, even why can't you build a different temple? I was giving a Savarkar sort of an argument, okay, build a different temple or give them something else to do. Why do you need to enter that temple only? It's not a public good.
So the tax rate is clearly lower for the richest people in the country. It is clearly lower for corporations, in effect. It is, and so to say that it's a record collection is misleading. So in terms of the healthcare and how that relates to the government, oh, by the way, on one more thing on taxes, you said, name me a tax loophole. Mm-hmm. So yes, there are plenty of those. For example, they hide their money offshore. They do tricks like the double Dutch and the Irish sandwich or the reverse. And I would end that. I would say, hey, you know what? If we've got a 35% rate, here's the new rule. You're going to pay 35%, okay? And you're not allowed to hide your money. I don't care if it's in the Cayman Islands. We're going to make that illegal, Mitt Romney. We're going to make it illegal.
Even if you make it illegal, they'll send their money to Cayman Islands illegally, or they'll send it to UAE or invest in India. There's no way you'll make them pay 35%, Cenk. That's the problem.
Okay. And so then every once in a while they do a tax holiday. Well, that must be nice. You remember when you got a tax holiday? I don't remember getting a tax holiday. No, that's only for corporations who bribe politicians. So they brought that rate down from 35% to 5%. And they said they were going to create more jobs. Color me surprised when it turns out they didn't. They offshore taxes. They took that 30% extra, put it in their pocket, gave it to their executives, and created no new jobs. Because that's how it works if you just trust corporations to do the right thing.
No new jobs का एक घपला है argument में, because he says this ignoring this घपला कि if you give rich people tax breaks, they'll just spend it on a yacht, whereas poor people will spend it on burgers for basic necessities, etc. But where does the yacht come from? Who makes the yacht? Who are the laborers? Who are the designers? Who are the manufacturers? What the fuck? Yacht के लिए भी तो employment generate होता है. अगर मान लिया कि सिर्फ याट ही खरीदते और कुछ नहीं करते हैं अमीर लोग.
Corporations are not evil. They just want to maximize profit. That is what they're built for. So please don't be naive and be like, no, but the corporations will look out for our interests. No, they look out for their bottom line.
I mean,
and finally, just last quick thing,
Sure.
Medicare Advantage. You keep saying rationing healthcare, but Medicare gives you the bare minimum, and people seem to be very, very happy about it given how well it polls. But you can do Medicare Advantage and get more. I want you to be able to do that. If you're incredibly rich and you want every kind of treatment, I don't want to deny that to you. Get Medicare Advantage.
So
Yes.
Ben, let me just ask,
The
and you
problem
can
is when you
respond
pay-
to that too.
The problem is when you pay a higher tax rate throughout the course of your life to pay for all of the Medicare that you are talking about, you don't have enough money to pay for Medicare Advantage in many cases. And as far as this
Right.
idea that corporations they don't have any of your interests at heart. You are a corporation. TYT's it's a corporation. You have 80 employees. I assume that you're not just a greedy asshole, and that you actually would like to help your employees from time to time. And you just talked about how under Obama, everything got better with your business. Well, under Obama, he didn't radically escalate taxes. Okay, there was not a radical escalation of taxes under President Obama. And finally, when you seem to be identifying a higher tax rate in the 1950s with higher level of growth. So if
Yeah.
that's the case, why not just tax everybody at 100% and we can have massive growth from here to eternity?
This is so phenomenal.
You seem to be identifying a higher tax rate in the 1950s with higher level of growth. So if that's the case, why not just tax everybody at 100% and we can have massive growth from here to eternity?
ये सब आइडियाज को कांग्रेस को मत दो. Where are the PC मौलानोबिश फैन बॉयज? उनको लगेगा कि हाँ ऐसा करते हैं, बढ़िया बोला है बेन शपीरो जी ने.
And
Because
let me just ask, since we're talking about taxes, do you think we'll see tax reform in the next few months here?
okay, so let me try to address all that in your question as well. So just real quick, look, guys, I said it however many questions ago. Of course, you have to find the right balance on all of these issues, including taxes. So I never said there's no end to how much you can.
I'm just asking
pay.
why, though.
Yeah. So this leads to no. Wait a minute.
A moment's fumble is all you get. एक मुहूर्त का fumble हुआ और सब लोग हंसने लगे. That's the intensity and the level of this debate. An absolutely electrifying atmosphere.
On all of these issues, including taxes. So I never said there's no end to how much you can.
I'm just asking
pay.
why, though.
Yeah. So this leads to no. Wait a minute. This leads to big government versus small government. You're asking me what the ideal tax rate is, and then you did a straw man there for a second and said it should be 100%. I never said that.
No,
In fact, I said.
No, you said the economy.
Let me
you said the
understand
economy.
what you
You said the economy grew faster when the top marginal tax rate was 91%. So I'm asking you, why shouldn't the top tax rate or all tax rates be 91%? You seem to be identifying a higher rate of growth with higher taxation. So I'm asking you on principle. You
Okay,
keep talking
now-
about the glories of a mixed economy. So now tell me about the glories of capital. I've heard about the glories of high tax rates. I've heard about the glories of government-provided healthcare. Now tell me some of the glories of actual capitalism, which is the basis for all the things you're talking. Tell me why it's good.
Right. So now, look, when you, I use the example that
No, this is Western style capitalism. No, this is the Western propaganda that we have to counter. This is the point. That is why we must reject libertarianism. अब अगर ग्रुप का कोई देख रहा है तब बोलेंगे देखो यही है आईटी सेल का एंड गोल. जैसे कि एक्चुअल हिंदुत्व सोशलिस्ट को लगता है कि एंड गोल है कि डूइंग सम बेनिफिट टू यूएसए. अब इन लोगों को लग रहा है कि द एंड गोल इज अपोलोजाइजिंग फॉर बीजेपी. तो बट एनीवे, यूएसए ने जो ये एसहोल पब्लिक में बोल के सोसाइटी को इतना एफआईआर फ्री कर दिया है, इतना एफआईआर लेस कम कर दिया है, अकाउंटेबिलिटी कहाँ है? बच्चों का क्या होगा? बच्चे देख रहे हैं, 4 साल के बच्चे, जानते हो, रात को बैठ के जेंक उइगुर और बेन शपीरो का डिबेट देखते हैं.
percent and 70% to give you a sense of that. I was surprised and you'd be surprised to find out that our economy was booming in those times. That's not to say that that is the right tax rate for us today. And so the exercise of finding the right tax rate is, guys, try to follow along, okay? It's called logic. So it would be preposterous to set the tax rate at 0. It would be preposterous to set it at 100%. So what we have to do as a society is figure out where we can maximize the most amount of good for the country.
Should it be closer to
including
0 or
revenue
closer
for the
to
government,
100?
but not too much away from us. So, for example, the reason why when taxes are higher, it winds up being better for the economy is because it recirculates the money. So if you give it to the rich, this is hilarious. If you're uneducated, please at least don't make it obvious.
This is the most interesting conversation
So
on taxes
if
I've
you
heard.
don't know the concept of recirculation of money, then
अरे भाई, रिसर्कुलेशन टैक्सेस से होता है, मगर रिसर्कुलेशन याट खरीदने से नहीं होता. ये एक अजीब आर्गुमेंट निकाला है चंक ने.
go look it up. And so the way that it works is that when the middle class has more money, disposable income, they spend it. Why? Because they're not living the lap of luxury. They're not saving it for their yacht. So they need to buy food for their family. They need education for their family. So they spend it and it goes back into the economy. If you just give it in supply side economics to the rich and hope that it trickles down on us eventually decades later, what they wind up doing with it is something that is logical. They
It doesn't trickle down decades later though. It trickles down pretty soon.
save it. But that means it does not recirculate in the economy. And that is why
Yes, people save in FD as well, which benefits no one. Inflation rate से कम FD का रिटर्न आता है.
when you have lower taxes, ironically, the economy does worse. But of course, it's a balancing act.
Okay, so now you're making a strong case for Keynesian economics, which is totally fine, obviously. The problem with Keynesian economics is that it doesn't even work in theory because, again, once you go to the logical extreme, which is remove all of the money from the rich people who are saving all their money and give it to all the poor people to buy hamburgers, that doesn't help the economy or spur the economy. What spurs the economy is a higher level... What spurs the
Gravity maybe because they don't have the equivalent of FD, or I guess bonds maybe.
economy is the creation of new products and services, and that is only going to be done by people who have expendable capital to actually invest in the new products and services that we all enjoy. This is what creates economic growth. It's also worth noting that this myth that spending is inherently better for an economy than saving, that's only true if you're talking about somebody who's actually taking the cash and just shoving it into their mattress. Banks are in the business of lending. When they take the money in, they don't just stick it in Al Gore's fake lockbox. They actually lend the money back out to people to actually create new businesses and new products. You had an investor, right? When you started TYT, you were given $4 million by Buddy Romer to start TYT. That's great. That's the way business should work, right? But that money it didn't come from a bunch of poor people buying hamburgers. It came from a very, very wealthy guy who gave you money to create a business a lot of people want to patronize. If you want better products and better services, you need more investment in the products and services. The basic name, trickle-down economics.
How is this different from a great concert? Oh, what a performance. Abhishek would start with a small book called Economic Facts and Fallacies by Thomas Sowell. Your life will be set. Anand Sridhar, they actually bring up, you have seen this debate though. Yes, the subprime crisis does come as a counter from Cenk Uygur as well. But there were many other factors to consider in the subprime crisis because people still did not die of starvation and stuff. Many people lost their lifetime amount of savings and then had to do other jobs after retirement and get back on their feet only to a little extent. Secondly, some of them, of course, became homeless. I acknowledge that. Some of them became alcoholics, drug addicts. Some of them committed suicide. I acknowledge that. But secondly, Obama bailed out the banks. And people like Ben Shapiro opposed that. The bailing out of the banks was what was also more problematic. If the bailing out had not been done, with that money could have been used to at least replenish those losses of those people.
The basic name trickle-down economics is not something that any conservative even proposed.
And by the way, the subprime mortgage situation was not just free market doing its own thing and then fucking things up. There was actual corruption. Remember the AAA ratings that the ratings agencies gave to those mortgages? What the fuck? That was pure corruption.
It's a leftist revision of what economics actually is, because you're not giving me the money. It was my money in the first place, created through voluntary transactions that I had with others. I've not stolen money from anyone, neither have you. And the idea that money has to be forcibly taken from you and handed to somebody at the bottom end of the economic spectrum to somehow jog the economy, that may jog McDonald's, but is not going to jog all of the creation of the products and services that make all of our lives much better today than they were 30 years ago in terms of the stuff we have access to.
Cenk, I'll let you respond to that briefly, and then we'll switch topic.
Yeah. So I'll try to answer that as briefly as I can, and I'll go on to your questions. So when you talk about, hey, the banks they're not going to.
And yes, so we are never defending corruption when someone does corrupt things, like saying that no matter what kind of mortgage it is, just call it A or A+. That's corruption. That's not free market. And if you say that's what happens in a free market situation, well, they got away with it by bribing people. They got away with it by voting for Democratic Party, which is why since 2008 onwards, the rise of wokeism started. They realized there's an interclass, across class lines, across race lines, there's a unity happening behind Bernie Sanders, who are occupying Wall Streets. How do we fuck with this? Vote a black guy into power, who will give out race-baiting narratives, and people will forget that. And hence the thing we just discussed a few days back, Bernie Sanders gives room to, which was basically a microcosm of how things would turn out later on, and the general trajectory of Bernie Sanders' career. He gives room to black and half Native American girls to disrupt his speech. And they say that only white people have the right, white people are too privileged, so they can't be allowed to talk, etc. And therefore, only black people should be allowed to talk. Then the intersectionality hierarchy comes out, who are the most privileged, they have the right to talk. And they disrupt all discussions against Wall Street or these banking problems. But then, remember, Tim Pool also used to say, and this was much before that Bernie Sanders incident, that I think happened only in 2015, but during the early days of the Occupy Wall Street movement, in Central Park in New York, one fine morning, Tim Pool, he was a big-time Occupy Wall Street guy back then, doing citizen journalism, writing blogs, back when blogs were a big thing, and you could make money from blogs. One fine morning, he sees some random people they didn't know were going up on the pulpit and saying that all the white people go behind, black people come forward, you say your piece, and then some people say, what the fuck? What is this about? We are all affected here. We are all standing up against what Wall Street is doing. And everyone, or all those people shout them down, and everyone join in that movement, because crowds are gullible nut jobs. They immediately think, yes, why not a black guy? Why always a white guy? That's when the entire narrative shifts by funding from these banks and the Democratic Party, so that they don't complain about the bailing out.
Going to just keep the money. They're going to put it out and lend it to people, unless they decided to do their own investments, which is what they did because we repealed Glass-Steagall. So it's not as simple as, oh, I have money, so then I will now utilize it or I'll lend it out. So that is way oversimplistic. Speaking of oversimplistic, to say that, oh, well, they'll go buy hamburgers with it, come on.
You were the one who said
so
food.
the middle class is struggling right now. And we've turned this into a Walmart economy where people are getting $7.25. And that if you're getting around $10, I think that's about $15,000 a year. So that is serious pain and difficulties. So if you give those people money, it's not like, I just want to go get a hamburger. No, they desperately need that money. And they will spend it all back into the economy. So that's an economic fact. And so
investments and yachts are also back in the economy. What are you going to do?
And Ben, for the 88th time, we have to find a balance where you have provided an incentive for people to save and invest, and you have provided an incentive for people to be able to put money back into the economy and to be able to live. And it's not, and taxes is not stealing from you. So you're right, I run a business. So in order for people, my employees, to get to my company, you know what they have to do? They have to drive on roads.
Nice argument. Yes, Gravity. Have you seen The Big Short? Yeah, that stripper is portrayed in even in the movie. So the guy who plays the lead character in Office, the famous TV show Office, he does a phenomenal role. Plays a phenomenal role in Big Short. He was one of those people who realizes early on that this thing is a bubble and it's going to crash, and they shorted the entire market. So he at one point says, while after talking to some guys who are giving out these loans and stuff, he says, why are these people admitting that they are doing a corrupt thing? And his lackeys say that they are bragging. They are not admitting even. What a phenomenal movie.
Okay, so it's not stealing from me to build that road. That helps my business. They had to go to school. The fact that they went to public schools allows them to work for me. All these things are things that I benefit from. I didn't build that company by myself. Every single person that works there helped me to build that company. And that's what it means to work together. So to answer Steve's question finally, look, what is this Congress going to do on tax reform? And Ben and I disagree on this too, because we just talked about it a second ago.
Look, for that I can't give him credit because it was, I think, common sense. It was bound to happen anyway. USA was never in favor of elimination of complete destruction of Gaza. And Akhinsha used to say that the war will end, and people are not going to go around funding those wars anymore. So at that point, someone may have thought he was saying that Gaza will be eliminated off the face of the earth, which is not something he said. And people had the common sense to think that, yes, this is what will probably happen. And that's what's happening.
And this is just political prognostication, but I think that the Republicans will definitely pass tax reform. And the reason I say that is because the Republican Party at this point is completely dependent on their donors. And by the way, don't get me wrong, the Democratic Party is also largely dependent on their donors. I think the Republicans are a tiny bit more corrupt. But
वो तो दिख ही गया भाई 10 साल में.
So I think that their donors are going to demand those tax cuts. And if I am right, and we'll all see this, because it's something that's going to happen later, not something that has happened, they will do everything. They will move mountains to make sure that those rich donors and corporations will get their tax cuts.
Okay, so this is an interesting case where I say to Cenk's prognostication from his mouth to God's ears, and he says about mine from my mouth to God's ears. I don't think they're going to pass anything because I think that there's a high level incompetence inside the Republican caucus, and it's pretty fractious. But I do want to go back to a couple of points because you actually hit on some major thematic points. You talked about roads and the fact that we need roads in order to get to work. This is a point Elizabeth Warren made, and obviously a point that President Obama made at the time. I don't think anyone argues that we don't need roads to get to work. The problem is that when you're talking about roads as a percentage of the budget, we are talking about a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of the federal budget and of the state budget and even of the local budget. So the idea that you're justifying massive tax rates on corporations in order to pay for roads is just intellectually dishonest. It's a tiny, the stuff that we agree on, that government should spend on, is a tiny percentage of spending, right? It's all the other stuff that we disagree on. As far as the idea that I'm somehow being, dismissive toward people who are buying hamburgers, I'm not. I'm saying the people who are poor need to buy hamburgers to feed their children. They don't have the money to invest in building an iPhone because when you're just trying to get by and you are living in a Walmart subsistence economy, you're using that money to buy the products and services you need to get by. That does not create new products and services that become cheaper over time through competition. You need somebody to make those investments. You said this about Glass-Steagall, for example. You said the banks, they might make their own investments. In what? In what? They're not investing in themselves. I mean, they have to take that money and then they have to use it to invest in something else. Places like Apple, some that fail and some that succeed. This idea that banks are somehow evils is just not the case unless you are talking about them working in Congress. Here you and I agree, working in congruity with a Congress, with a legislature that is attempting to give them kickbacks. Both you and I agree on this.
That's the cartel.
So, and finally, as far as the idea that Republicans pass tax cuts because they're beholden to their donors, okay, and Democrats pass tax increases because the unions give them hundreds of millions of dollars every year, and I don't see Democrats complain about this.
So You got me there. The unions give money to the Democrats. So
Yes. And Vaishali, yes, not just banks, they repeatedly bailed out the auto industry too, while not bringing Elon Musk to the table to discuss EVs because he does not allow unions.
am I
Are you
gonna-
angry about that? I mean, does
Ford got billions, right? And they funded Ford Foundation with it, I guess.
it upset you as much as, you know, bankers giving money to Republicans?
No. The corporations give way more than the unions. So
It's
look it
which
up.
corporations.
That's okay.
That's not
That's
really
okay.
true.
Look it up. You can Google it. It's really easy. Do I object to taking out union money from politics? Hell no, I don't object. Take it all out. Take the union money out. Take the corporate money out. Take all the big money out. They're supposed to represent us and not the donors.
This is where Ben Shapiro disagrees, but the current Republican Party agrees with Cenk. Matt Gaetz and all, they are all self-funded people or crowd-funded people, not big money people. And that's where Republican Party shifted. But Ben Shapiro makes some rhetorically speaking some good points against this argument as well. Look for it.
No matter who the donors are. So in terms of the question that you asked, Glass-Steagall, aren't they investing in things? No. I have a literal answer for you. Oftentimes what they do is financial derivatives. In fact, that's the majority of what they do. And financial derivatives is simply gambling. That's what crashed the 2008 economy. And what is so damaging about the removal of Glass-Steagall is now they could do their financial derivative gambling with depositor money. Boy, isn't that nice. They take your money and they gamble with it. And if they lose, well, that's a sad day for you. But if they win, they keep the profits. You know what that is? That's privatizing the gains and socializing the losses.
That's what was done by Barack Obama, which was opposed by Ben Shapiro because Obama came to power to do race baiting stuff and not do this stuff and not solve that stuff.
So it's not that banks are evil. Of course they're not evil. It's just that they're driven to make more money. Of course, that is the whole point of maximizing.
Yes, Slevin, he has a point there, but think of it in a little broader context. Most of them did not starve to death. There was no generational growth stunting. People did not starve to death. They didn't starve at all. They instead became obese. What does that tell you about the general wealth of the society?
Profit. So if we say, hey, banks, you're allowed to go and buy politicians, although the Supreme Court would say, no, they're just talking to them. They just gave them billions of dollars. They're just having a conversation.
Here, after 2 or 3 exchanges, Ben Shapiro gives one of the best catchy comebacks he has ever given. Okay, wait for it. There's going to be an insane moment in this debate now.
Right? Just because they gave them billions of dollars, do they want something in return? Of course they want something in return. And that's our money. So what they got was laws passed by politicians to remove Glass-Steagall. And yes, Clinton and Gingrich, yes, both parties are guilty on that. But now the Democrats want to put it back on the Republicans.
And Clinton also pushed for the loans because he wanted to show off that how many people have become homeowners during his time. George Bush was happy to do it as well. Rishabh Agarwal, they are probably calling it a Glass-Steagall issue because there was speculation on the debt buying, right?
Stone, and they took our depositor money and they gambled with it. And if you thought if you gambled, you get to keep all the profits, and if you lost, it didn't affect you at all, you would probably gamble a lot of money too, and you would take a lot of risk until you crash the economy, and that's exactly
Fund a corrupt guy like Obama.
Ben, let me just add one piece of this question. You'll respond to it too. You've talked a lot about the corruption in politics, and a core part of the Trump campaign was railing against the establishment, which he thought was corrupted, and a lot of the big donors were initially against him. So which way is the Republican Party going to go on this? Is it Trumpism and the grassroots movement, or the establishment?
Well, I mean, when it comes to money in politics, I think that breakdown doesn't really hold. I mean, the fact is that President Trump during the campaign talked routinely about how engaged in putting money into politics. So, I mean, this is a game that a lot of people are playing. It's kind of a weird question. But as far as the idea that all money should be out of politics, here's the problem. Okay, TYT, we both have corporations, and we
now wait for it
upon politics every single day. And we motivate thousands of people, right, every day on both sides of the aisle. That is effectively an in-kind contribution. Now, you campaigned with Bernie Sanders. Did you do it because you expected? That's fine. Did you do that because you supported Bernie Sanders, or did you do that because you expected some gimme for TYT in return? I assume you did it because you supported Bernie Sanders, right?
Yes.
So, okay.
Now wait
the point
for
that
it.
I am making is to attribute to everyone else bad intent when it comes to political spending and politics, but to yourself, it's totally fine. And when it comes to other media entities that give in-kind contributions on a regular basis through their coverage, this is when the New York Times, which is biased to the left, spends an inordinate amount of time and money reporting on Mitt Romney's idiotic stories about how he was in high school and cutting a gay kid's hair in 1932. If you're saying to me that that is less impactful on the political sphere than a corporation, which is a group giving money to a political candidate for purposes of supporting that candidate, I fail to see how you can say for yourself that you are innocent in this, but everyone else is guilty. I don't believe that. Either everyone's guilty or everybody is innocent, or if you can find the actual cases of guilt where there's a quid pro quo, then we agree.
Right.
That's prosecutable. Right?
Right.
So, other point, when you talked about the 2008 economy, you talked about Glass-Steagall and how this led to the crash. The real reason that the crash happened had far less to do with Glass-Steagall. I oppose the
Wait, now Cenk is going to give a counter, and then comes Ben Shapiro's one of his all-time greatest comebacks. But I want to get to this argument a little further. क्विड प्रो को तो कभी भी नहीं मिलेगा. They are not that dumb fucks कि देखो यहाँ पे तुमको डोनेशन दिया था 20 रुपए का, वहां पे देखो मेरा 20 रुपए का गेन हो गया. ऐसे तो कोई भी ट्रैक नहीं कर पाएगा. But the way Vivek goes through working, finding out kind of quid pro quos, that I think works, and that also should be talked about. And I don't know if they qualify as quid pro quos or not, legally speaking, in US law, because I give you $20 of donation, and you give you are a government servant, you are a public servant, you are a bureaucrat or a judge even, or a prosecutor, and then you give some donations to a nice NGO, which indirectly after 2-3 layers ends up actually being my NGO.
Here everybody is innocent, or if you can find the actual cases of guilt where there's a quid pro quo, then we agree. That's prosecutable, right?
Yes.
So, other point, when you talked about the 2008 economy, you talked about Glass-Steagall and how this led to the crash. The real reason that the crash happened had far less to do with Glass-Steagall. I opposed the bailouts, by the way. It had far less to do with Glass-Steagall than it had to do with the fact that the federal government was actively promulgating the notion that corporations should give subprime mortgages to people who are not qualified as people who could take out loans.
To inflate, to boost the numbers of homeowners as their presidential heroicness.
This meant that, as you say, corporations are not inherently conservative, they're not inherently free market, they're inherently profit-driven. So if they felt that they could give a bunch of subprime mortgages and this would inflate the real estate prices, and if things went wrong, they just foreclose on the nearest house, and the market just keeps going up and up and up, and they can just, as you say, turn these into derivatives and sell them on the open market by pretending that these are all good loans because they have government backing.
Right.
And of course, you're going to get an inflated, overheated real estate market. But the question there is not the workings of the free market. It's the combination that you like in a mixed economy that I hate. Okay, I hate mixed economies in the sense that I don't believe that capitalism and socialism should be mixed, that corporatism is the solution. Okay, what you're talking about is corporatism. You're talking about Glass-Steagall, which freed, they're getting rid of Glass-Steagall. It freed the corporations to invest in a free market manner, but also they gave a bailout to all of these corporations by essentially incentivizing them to give a bunch of bad loans, knowing that if things went bad, then all the losses would be socialized. The problem there is not the free market. The problem there is a government that is acting as a backstop for bad decisions in the free market by profit-driven corporations.
Okay.
Now listen to the counter.
There's a lot to respond to there, so let me try to take it one at a time. First
Listen
off,
to Ben's counter.
I love the idea that the government made the banks do the subprime mortgages, and golly gee, the government twisted the banks' arm when they made billions upon billions of dollars. Oh man, don't make me make another billion. Don't make me make another billion. No, they did those. If they thought they were going to lose money off of it, they would have a fiduciary responsibility not to do it.
I agree.
Okay, they were not forced to make billions of dollars. They were not forced to then have us bail them out.
Right.
They did all of that because there's legalized bribery in America.
Right, because the government was giving them money.
So now let me address that. You say, well, what's the difference between your speech and their speech? Mine is actually speech, and theirs is money. So there's a giant difference.
You spend money on your speech.
First off,
No.
So they say, no, Supreme Court says, no, money is speech now. No, money is property. It's not speech. And so if money was speech, well, then if you go to a hooker and you say, oh, no, officer, I was just talking to her. Okay, money is not speech. So, for example, to give you a sense of it, to compare me saying I like Bernie Sanders and you saying whoever you like is the equivalent of this is obviously nonsensical. I believe it's obvious. So in a recent five-year period, the top 200 corporate givers, they both in donations and in lobbying spent $5.8 billion, okay? So that is not the same thing as me saying, hey, I like what Bernie's saying about college and Medicare. And when they did, why do you think they did? It was not because, hey, they genuinely like Bernie or Trump or Hillary. Because in return for that $5.8 billion, they got $4.4 trillion in government subsidies. So, which leads to, I actually think, the biggest point here, the difference between big government and small government. So a lot of times conservatives say, oh, you guys like big government. That's not true. So let me explain. If I ask you, hey, you got a plumbing job, what would you like, big pipes or small pipes? I don't know. What's the job we have? It depends. It's the same thing with the government. Okay, what size government would you like? I don't know. What's the job we have? So to say big government or small government doesn't make any sense. So, for example, do I want a big government that invades
Wait
Iraq?
for it.
Hell no, I don't. No way. And Ben, you were vociferously for the Iraq war. So in that sense, you loved the big government. Couldn't get enough of it. And I could go on and on and on. Republicans say, no, we don't like big government, but we'd like to be inside your uterus.
He's talking about abortion rights, which is a matter of protecting life, liberty, and property, by the way.
So just admit it. It's no problem. Just say it. Say I love big government. It's okay. So you're talking about when you like when you're rich and you want tax cuts. Oh no, I don't want big government. I want small government. But when it's convenient for you and you like oil subsidies and you like wars and you like to meddle in people's private lives, then you love big government.
Okay, I need to respond to some of that.
Now.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to point out that Cenk's big government, small government dichotomy was proposed by you, not by me. I talk about the proper scope of the government's involvement in particular.
No, by the way, Anand, he apologized and he said pretty early on, I think, that he was wrong to advocate for the Iraq war. And even many people, except Bernie Sanders, nobody said that US should not go into the Iraq war because everyone believed that there was WMD in Iraq.
Particular areas the same way that you do, and we may disagree on all of that. My point is that overall, if you're talking about the level of government spending, it needs to go down, and you believe that it really needs to go up. Okay, so it's disingenuous.
It depends.
It's
not on war, does it?
No, but overall,
not on the war on drugs. Not on so many of those wasteful programs. It depends. But
overall, you want the federal budget increased. Overall, I would like the federal budget decreased. To pretend that this is not true is to lie. Okay, and
What just happened? Now, his best comeback is yet to come. Wait for it. Is my face blurring or lagging? I think there's some problem with the Wi-Fi.
My point is that overall, if you're talking about the level of government spending, it needs to go down, and you believe that it really needs to go up. Okay, so it's disingenuous.
It depends. It's not on war, does it?
No, but overall,
not on the war on drugs. Not on so many of those wasteful programs. It depends. But
overall, you want the federal budget increased. Overall, I would like the federal budget decreased. To pretend that this is not true is to lie. Okay, and when you suggest that there is no difference between, we just have different visions of what the government should cover, these things cost different things. Okay, the war in Iraq was very expensive. You know what's more expensive? Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. All of these are vastly more expensive than the war in Iraq.
We paid into it.
Now, as far as this, again, going back to this idea that, again, I don't like this big government dichotomy any more than you do, in the sense that you say, well, it's big government for the government to get inside people's wombs. And I say that it is the government's job to preserve life, liberty, and property, and one of those things is life. To protect you from someone else taking it, okay? To protect you from someone else taking it. Now, when it comes to the idea that all money in politics is bad, again, I ask you, final question, final point on, we're going through 10 points at a time here, but final point here. When you say money in politics is bad, again, I ask you, Buddy Romer gave you $4 million to start TYT. What did he expect in return? Should he not have given you money? Was the money not speech? It was just money after all. It's just like a hooker, I assume. So are you the prostitute? How did this work?
Wait. The best one hasn't come yet. Wait for it.
When you take money from Al Jazeera,
Okay.
does that make you a hooker
So
for the Qataris?
that was
How
an
does that
awesome.
work?
That was an awesome conflation. Okay, we were talking about money in politics.
The best one
and
hasn't
how
yet
money
come.
is not speech when you give it as a campaign donation.
Now.
And you turn it around to a business investment. You know, in a business investment, it has nothing to do with speech. Money is money. They gave us an investment, because they believed in our business.
Good,
That has nothing to do with
That's
politics.
great. And you think the government is in the business of regulating business. So if
so-
the government is in the business of regulating business, what would be the problem with the government telling Buddy Romer he is not allowed to invest in your business?
No, those are two different issues.
Wait,
No problem.
now.
No, it's one thing is to say, hey, let's set reasonable limitations on what can happen around elections, which is again what most developed Western countries do. So, and they have different versions of that rule. There's ads you can run, you can't run ads within a certain period of time. You have public financing versus private financing. Those are rules around an election. That is a completely different issue than the government saying randomly you can and you can't invest in businesses. So
Why?
you're conflating those two issues
Now.
that have nothing to
Now.
do with one another.
Why?
So let's just
Wait, what does why mean?
Because it's
Those
a-
are
because-
two, hey, why, hey, you know,
because-
you believe in education,
Real quick,
so
very
why don't you
quick.
believe in healthcare?
Because it's a free country and I get to spend my money wherever I damn well please.
So, as we're coming to the close here, we're going to do one
Okay,
more.
I gotta ask him.
All right, very quick,
So
very
you
quick.
damn
though.
well please. Okay, so when the Koch brothers or Bloomberg or Soros puts in hundreds of millions of dollars into elections, you think, well, I'm just doing them because they're good guys and they damn well please buying all those politicians. Or you think, no, the politicians would never be affected by hundreds of millions of dollars in legalized bribes.
Okay.
And you can't just spend your money anywhere you want. Of course, there are rules. You can't bribe people.
Right.
There's many things you can't do with your money. And one of those should be bribing politicians, but we made it legal.
Cenk.
So I'm curious what your opinion on that
No.
is.
So, okay,
Do you
so-
think that they're just golly shucks?
Cenk.
They just mean well? And
Cenk, you're a lawyer, so you know that bribery requires two parties to the bribe. If I give money to a politician, there must be something in return. If there is no quid pro quo, there is no bribery.
you think there's nothing in return?
Well, you have
You
to-
think the politicians don't
No.
do those favors?
I think very often there is something in return, but I want you to point me to the things that are in return, not just say that all spending on politics ought to be forbidden except for the Young Turks.
No, that's of course not what we say.
The best one is yet to come.
If you want to get money out of politics and then you said the Young Turks cannot donate money to politicians, I'd say, of course, that's the whole point of getting money out of politics.
Wait, so
Okay?
Now.
Cenk,
So this idea that
It's coming.
hey, what?
come on.
Hold it.
It's so
Hold your breath.
disingenuous. Even if you're a Republican and you're a conservative, you think there isn't crony capitalism? You think that $4.4 trillion that went in subsidies
Final
isn't
question.
because they got campaign donations?
Final question.
You know it's because they
Cenk,
got campaign
Cenk.
donations.
Cenk, okay, final question.
This is gonna be the last word on
Final
this.
thing here
Last
on this,
word.
okay? Final question on this. So, Young Turks is super successful. We have 80 million uniques. It's wonderful. Do you think
Thank
Bernie
you.
Sanders would care more if you gave him $10,000 or if you dedicated your entire network to kissing his ass for an election cycle?
Look at the face of victory, the triumph.
All right. So
Oh,
two things about this.
this is like a crescendo in a beautiful musical piece. This is like a chorus in a rock song, like in an Alter Bridge song. This is how debates are done, guys. It doesn't matter if Cenk was convinced. It matters that many people in the audience was convinced. This is how it's done. Listen to this argument again.
You think that $4.4 trillion that went in subsidies
Final
isn't
question.
because they got campaign
He framed this entire sentence, the question in his head as a counter. He's now ready for it. That's why he's calling Cenk. Stop. I want to say this. Cenk.
donations? You know it's because they
Cenk,
got campaign
Cenk.
donations.
Cenk, okay, final question.
This is gonna be the last word on
Final
this.
thing here on
Last
this,
word.
okay? Final question on this. So, Young Turks is super successful. We have 80 million uniques. It's wonderful. Do you think
Thank
Bernie
you.
Sanders would care more if you gave him $10,000 or if you dedicated your entire network to kissing his ass for an election cycle?
Look at that face.
All right. So two things about this.
ये है डिबेट, और फिर बंगाल में है चंद्रिल भट्टाचार्य, also a debater.
First of all, I think you and I will agree. That what we did in praising some of Bernie's programs, a lot of Bernie's programs, but not all. For example, I disagree with him on guns, and I thought Hillary's education program was slightly better than Bernie's. And by the way, I agree with the Republicans on the Export-Import Bank. So it's not blind allegiance. That is not what we do, not remotely, okay? Second of all, I think you'll agree with me that the mainstream media kissing Hillary Clinton's ass for 2 straight years was a much bigger problem.
Would you outline?
Now, the distinction that you're asking for, and now I've answered, I think, 4 times is, one is speech, and by the way, protected, you said life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I think we all agree to that. I got a big applause line. I also agree. And in our Constitution, the First Amendment is right to speech and freedom of the press. So that is that rubric. Money is not in the First Amendment. There is no right to spend money on politicians. Money is money, speech is speech.
All right, so let's do rapid fire now as we come to the close here. I think, by the way, there's wide agreement about the corruption in politics, maybe different ways of how to deal with it, but this has been a very good conversation. So I'll go first to Ben. As we look at 2020, what will be a winning message?
Yes, Boichalidi. No one can stand up to the Bengalis in the center and leave the Tamils out of it anyway. Have you seen Saira Shah Halim's debate with Jesai Deepak? Have you seen who's that Muslim man who's the head of CPM right now in Bengal? Mohammad Salim. Have you seen Mohammad Salim's debate with versus Jesai Deepak? Okay, वहाँ पे बंगाल का डिबेट का कल्चर जो इतना है ना लौड़े, सब औकात बाहर आ गया जेसाई दीपक के सामने बैठ के 2 बार इन दोनों का.
And who will be a winning candidate on the Republican side in 2020?
So, I think that the greatest ally that the Republicans have is the incompetence and stupidity of the Democratic Party. The 2016, in fact, I have a feeling that Cenk actually might agree with me on this. That 2016 election, Donald Trump became president of the United States, right? Hillary Clinton was the worst candidate in the history of mankind, and that had so. You know, the Republican message I never thought was a particularly losing message. I just think that what we have right now is such a polarized politics that it's going to be very difficult for anybody to pass anything in this climate. I also think that what we have almost a reactionary feel on both sides. Like what I like about this debate is that we're actually talking about ideas, which is actually pretty rare in this sphere. Well, what's become more common is that on the left, there's this retreat to intersectionality as an identity politics. This idea that if we can cobble together a group of people who are feeling victimized by...
Back in 2017, they had no idea how bad it was going to get.
American society, you know, we have black people and we have Hispanic people and we have women and we have gays and lesbians and transgenders, and they all feel really bad about how American politics is going. And if we push that notion, we can create a coalition. There'll be a brand new coalition never before seen in American politics, and that requires a woman to run, or that requires a black woman to run, or that requires a minority to run. If they do that, then what you're going to see from, and I think an equally nasty way, from the right is a response that says, okay, well, if you're going to do identity politics, you will see some white identity politics from the right, which I think is really negative. I don't want to see either of those things. What I would like to see is the Democrats campaign on the bigger, on the stronger involvement of government in your life and higher taxes program that Cenk wants them to campaign on. The Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren program. And I would like to see the Republicans campaign on my program, a smaller government libertarian program that says the government should get out of our lives as much as humanly possible.
All right, and for Cenk. What will be a winning message and who will be a winning candidate for Democrats in 2020?
Talks like Lex Friedman all of a sudden.
Wouldn't it be weird if this ended up being the stage?
That's what I told you guys backstage. This is a presidential debate.
Okay, so look, Ben, you said earlier that you didn't set up the big government, small government paradigm, but you just said you want them to run on a small government
yes,
platform.
A less involvement in American
again,
lives, yes.
Small government doesn't make any sense. So let's break it down. You asked me about particular issues, so I'll give you one. So you were in favor of the Iraq War. That cost us at least $1.5 trillion. Then people turn around and say to Bernie Sanders, well, I mean, college for your kids are middle class. That's unaffordable. That's way too much money. You can't do that. That costs $75 billion a year. First of all, college for your kids. You know what that's called? That's called the American dream. And for one Iraq war, for the cost of one Iraq war, we could have gotten 20 years of free college for all those kids and the American dream.
That wealth creation would not happen because it was being spent in weapons. It was generating employment. Ab kya kare? Yes, Milton, I forgot to respond to this. You were saying it in the Libertarian Party discussion as well. I don't think it would make a difference at all. I would be really happy about it. It would make a great rhetorical show. It would be great for optics. It would not mean anything different. What makes you think Sanjeev Sanyal does not give the same ideas as he would have done if he was finance minister right now as economic advisor to the prime minister, or when he was the principal economic advisor to Nirmala Sitharaman? So उनको ऊपर में सुनना है कि नहीं वो बात है, आईएएस को कन्विंस कर पाएंगे कि नहीं वो बात है, और फिर ये भी है कि इलेक्शन लड़ना है, जीतना है, संदीप सन्याल जीत भी पाएंगे कि नहीं वो भी बात है.
So it isn't about big government or small government. It's about what do we do with the money. So that $1.5 trillion could have gone to us, could have gone to the middle class, could have gone to a better economy. Because when you go to college, you come out, you start businesses, you engage in this market, and you make things better and you employ people. We could have used that for us. Instead, we wasted it in Iraq. And by the way, I believe, Ben, you want to get tough on Iran, you want to rip up the deal, etc. If you go to Iraq,
Narendra Modi allowed him to make MEA this beast-like.
war was a waste of blood and treasure. Wait till you get a load of what happens in Iran. So we're not going to make that mistake again. We're not going to make that mistake again. So what would I run on this idea of the identity that Democrats run on identity politics? And some of them do. But let's not forget that Republicans do the same and worse. Who was the one who came up with the Southern strategy? That was the Republican Party. And the Southern strategy was, let's go get racist white voters in the South. That's a fact. So
there's a counter to this.
Once again, it's this wonderful capitalist invention called Google. Google it. So two Republican chairmen have said, yes, we did do that strategy and we apologize. So that's a fact. They're the ones who invented identity politics. So when you like identity politics when it serves your interests, but all of a sudden when we say, hey, can black people have the same rights as white people? Oh, identity politics. Can gay people have the same rights as straight people? Identity politics. It's called equality. Look into it. It's called America. Okay?
All right, well, I think we now know.
USA, USA, USA.
All right.
Equality for all of us.
Okay.
All right.
I want to respond to this is a
Ben,
point.
just very quickly.
Hold on, this is very quick, okay?
Very quick.
Okay, I want to respond to a point. This is a point that Cenk made last year in his debate with Dinesh repeatedly for about an hour. Was the Southern strategy with regard to the Republicans. Okay, I'd like to point out the idea that the entire South solidly moved into the Republican category because of the Civil Rights Act is historically false and has been debunked multiple times by people ranging from Sean Trent at Real Clear Politics to professors at the University of Pennsylvania. And there's a bunch of ways to debunk it, including the fact that the Congress did not switch Republican in the South until 1994. Okay, did it take 30 years for the racists to realize what was going on? 21 senators from the South were Democrats. How many of them became Republicans after the Civil Rights Act? The answer, 1. The other 20 stayed Democrats. In 1952, Eisenhower did not win a ton of the South. Eisenhower did win, however, 7 states in the South in 1956 after he sent federal troops down south. The reason that the Republican Party started to win in the South, it began in the 1950s, not after the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and it was largely due to the movement of industry down south. It was new fringe members of the Republican Party, younger members of the Republican Party, who switched over to the Republican Party in the South, not old Democrats, who remained old Democrats and are still old Democrats today.
So I'm going to jump in here.
Okay.
People like Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton's mentors, political mentors in the Democratic Party, who were former KKK members.
I got it. real quick. You're right.
Very quick.
By the way,
Yeah.
This will
final
be
note,
the last word. This will
Jimmy
be the-
Carter launched his 1980 campaign
अरे भाई यही बात जब लिबर्टेरियन पार्टी ऑफ इंडिया बोल रहा है तो तुम सब लोग अपोज कर रहे हो.
at the headquarters, that town in Alabama that was the headquarters for the KKK. So to pretend that it was only
Yeah.
Republicans playing the
Yeah.
bad and evil
All right.
race strategy is just a
So-
lie.
All right.
Okay.
Last word.
So-
This will be the last word.
That was him responding to his own thing. Okay. So, real quick, because you're right, we had a whole almost an hour long debate on the Southern strategy. You guys always cherry pick certain windows of time. In this very narrow window
I
of
just went
time,
from
this people came to
1992.
that
I just
people.
went from 1952 to 1994.
Hold on. If Ben, if you're so right, why did two heads of the RNC come out and say, yes, we did the Southern strategy, and we apologize? Why did Pat Buchanan say to me on MSNBC, yes, we did the Southern strategy, yes, we got whites to vote for us in the South?
That's the same reason that Firad Hakimi is saying the things he is saying, just to benefit the other person so that he can become the bigger leader among the opposite side.
And we had a good run. Okay, it wasn't me saying it, was Republican leaders and Buchanan
Yes.
who did it at the Nixon campaign, admitting that was exactly the
And
strategy.
there were some members of the Republican Strategy Council who were doing evil things. That doesn't mean all the people who voted for the Republicans were voting for them because of those things. And to impute that motive to tens of millions of people down south is to ignore not only every
I'm
public opinion
imputing it
poll
to
done,
Republican
but also
leaders.
to fail to
Cut right
recognize
in here.
history.
Holy shit. This was fun. Okay then. This was a nice day of live streams. Tomorrow at 7:30 we are having on Professor Birendranath Prasad of JNU. And before that, I think we'll have to get back to Dr. Janki Bakle's book again. My brain is fried right now. This was awesome. Love how these when they lose a debate, yes. So thank you guys for joining the live stream. Bye bye. Good night.
যদি সবাই ফিরে যায় ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায় যদি গহন পথে যাওয়ার কালে কেউ ফিরে না যায় তবে পথের কাটা তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি আলো না ধরে ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা আলো না ধরে যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে তবে বজ্রানলে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা জলরে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা জলরে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো রে